I want to go ahead and talk about, well, TV shows, honestly. TV shows. Now, I recently just did a discussion this past Monday for the best TV shows of 2022 so far. And thankfully, chat, there has been a lot of great TV. So much great TV. Some of it I haven't even been able to watch. Like, I got to catch up on Succession. I still have to watch Euphoria, chat, and Murders in the Building. Like, there's a lot of great TV out there. I talked about thank God, close to 6 or 7 shows that I highly recommend people check out. Everything from Barry to Stranger Things to Better Call Saul, Legend of Vox Machina, just to name a few. Now, there have been some other shows that I've seen this year where I can't say like they were the worst of the worst. I'm sure that there is plenty of worse TV out there. I'm sure people have been able to make their list and like all these various comedic sitcoms. I'm sure. This list, even though I'll probably call it the worst, it's more of just the most disappointing TV shows of 2022 so far. Where even within these shows, there was still some really good content, some content that I even loved or I even liked, but I felt like it wasn't. It wasn't as good as it obviously could have been, based on the material some of these shows are adapting from. A lot of these are adaptations, or a lot of these shows feature characters who've been featured in other media before, and it's more of it's just frustrating. So it won't be too long of a discussion. Honestly, it might end up being the longest of the discussions that I've had so far, because these will also kind of act as reviews for these shows. I realize that we really do like reviews for these shows. I usually don't do TV show season reviews, but I figure it might work for this one. And I wanted to start out with a show, which I'll admit at the top, I'll admit right here, that I didn't watch all of this show. However, I did watch several episodes of it. And I have to say, I was very disappointed at the writing, at the production, and at the acting, chat. And this is more of an honorable mention since I didn't actually watch the show all the way through. And maybe it improved later on, although I heard from many other people and reviewers that it did not. But I want to give a dishonorable shout out to Paramount's Halo TV series. I am a longtime Halo fan, chat. I remember when the series, when the series first came out on the original Xbox, back in 2001, and it played a huge role in popularizing first-person shooters on consoles. Yes, of course, you had things like you had GoldenEye, you had Perfect Dark, but when you think about first-person shooters on consoles and what really proliferated them and where it became one of the most dominant platforms to play first-person shooters, it was Halo on the original Xbox. And, obviously the franchise became huge. It was the thing that sold Xboxes for Microsoft. Obviously, the original Xbox and the Xbox 360 and the Xbox 360 generation. I mean, Halo 3, I remember back in the day, chat, when Halo 3 was coming out, the anticipation was huge. They were showing the teaser trailer, the CGI teaser trailer, where we see like a young John, a young Master Chief, talking to that little girl. It's like, this is huge. It was a cultural phenomenon at the time. And, people were wondering, okay, when are we gonna see Halo adaptation? And you had all these various people attached to it at one point. Famously, Peter Jackson was going to produce a movie with Neil Blomkamp directing the film. You can even see a lot of Neil Blomkamp's test footage. And, it was supposedly they wanted to have a release date sometime in 2008 and 2009. But for whatever reason, that project fell apart. Neil Blomkamp obviously went on to direct District 9. It was a great movie. After that, Steven Spielberg was involved as a producer. I guess Peter Jackson just abandoned the project, and Steven Spielberg got involved, and he was there for I feel like he's been attached to like a Halo production for over a decade at this point. And we heard about like a Halo TV series when the original Xbox One was announced, and that was a whole kerfuffle, chat. It's a whole nother story. But we finally got this show. It's finally premiered in 2022. Feels like 10 years after it was announced by Steven Spielberg that they're working on it, or since like 2015. This a Halo adaptation has been some form of production. And I personally, I've talked about this before on a Class in the Glass cast, but I feel like it's too late. Not to say that the Halo games haven't been, that they've all been bad recently. I enjoyed Halo Infinite, but that game had significant issues. That game had significant problems. From its truncated release schedule to its lack of support, from its lack of just of features that have always been present in Halo games for years. It's been weird. The Halo franchise, I think, has been mistreated for years. And I feel like an adaptation, whether it be a TV show or a movie, is too little too late at this point. And watching this show, it's like, listen, I know you're going to change things up. Not everything has to be just like the original game. I think that's fine. But at least of what I've seen so far of the show, which is about 2 episodes, I was very disappointed by it. It looks cheap. There are times where it's like, oh, that looked pretty cool. But then there are other scenes where it's like, this is obviously being affected by its minimal budget. And there are things where it doesn't feel like the special effects are done. The CGI looks wonky at times. And, you're presenting us with characters that just come across really annoying. It's like, it's very bizarre to me that in this show, where I guess this is an alternate version of Master Chief. This is not the Master Chief from the games. This is not the Master Chief that's really from the books. It's kind of its own timeline, its own chronology, its own characters, its own version of characters. And it was always kind of bizarre to me that the show didn't really start with Master Chief and Cortana and like really focusing on that relationship. That's not what the show's really about, which is bizarre to me because that is kind of one of the big things that works about the games, narratively and character wise, and also in the books. In this one, they have Master Chief, team up with this just a snot-nosed brat of a kid who already hates him. And I'm just like, I can't stand this. I listen, not to say like I hate all children in media or I hate children in TV shows, but it's the kind of thing where we need to give Master Chief a plucky sidekick who is precocious and gets in trouble and needs to be saved all the time. I'm like, I'm fucking sick of that across everything. Not just in like, genre stuff, but across the board. It is just so annoying. It's faux conflict. You're creating faux conflict for your show or for your movie. And as the audience member, it's just like, all right, here we go. We got to go through all the goddamn motion. I'm just sick of it. I'm really, really tired of that. We got to move past that common story trope. And at least in the first 2 episodes that I've seen of Halo, they do that all the time. Where they have this, I forget the character's name, the little girl, she's part of the rebels because they're upset with the UNSC, which is what, Master Chief is a part of. And, they get fucking slaughtered, by the Covenant, which, are introduced in the series for the first time. Like, oh, aliens, we thought it was propaganda. And they're like, hey, listen, can you tell the other outer colonies that there actually are weird zealot aliens who want to wipe every man? She's like, no, I don't want to do that. And it's like, then everyone's going to die if you don't, because they're not going to believe us, okay? Listen, we've done, I love that, all in the first episode, the first or second episode, they always say, listen, you need to put this out there because no one else is going to believe us. She's like, I'm not going to do it. And so I assume all of them die because of her selfishness. That's why, chat. And shit like that I'm like, I can't tolerate it. And there's all the things too. Like, listen, one of the big things about the games, and it's one thing when it's like, we got to get past this, as fans. It's like, I wouldn't mind if they take off Master Chief's helmet. Let's do that. I know that they've kind of done that in the past, and it's like, oh, we've seen parts of his face or whatever. But what I feel like this show, and apparently they just treat it like willy-nilly, but what this show needed to do in the series was make him taking his helmet off, or the whole idea of Master Chief, he's like a super soldier. He's like a Frankenstein super soldier. He's been experimenting on since he was a little kid. All he knows is war. All he knows is combat chat. All he knows is strategy, right? Military tactics. And, he gets more humanity as the series goes along, of course. But you need to make that moment when he takes off his helmet mean something huge. It needs to be like a wow. Okay, this is showing the man underneath the suit. It needs to be something. And they just do it at the end of the first episode. And it's like, hey, we got to do this, okay? You got to trust me. And it was to that little snot-nosed brat character. It's like, give me a break. It's frustrating. I've heard things that as the series goes on that they make a lot of, to be kind, bold choices, that are kind of goes against what, the games have done, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You want to change it up. But, I've heard from a lot of Halo fans, they just really dislike this. And for a variety of reasons, for them indulging the tropes, as I said, and just looking cheap. Like, Halo needs that big budget. It needs that cinematic flair. And what I have seen it didn't look any different than some of the web series that I've seen, like Forward Unto Dawn, I believe, which was like a Halo 4 prequel. They did that one, and then they did one with Mike Coulter, Luke Cage, the main actor played Luke Cage. He did a series, I want to say. Or even some of those cool commercials, like the ODST commercial, the Halo Reach commercial. It's like, okay, I'm like, these are fun. Nice little live action bits, but it's not, this is obviously not, a big budget. And that's what this show still feels like. And apparently, like, I think they made each episode for like something like $9 million. And I'm like, okay, if you say so. Yeah, I didn't want to, again, this is more of an honorable mention because I haven't watched all of it. I know there's like, about 9 or 10 episodes available for people to check out. So, I mean, I can't speak for all of it, chap. Of what I've seen, I was very disappointed. I didn't really care for it all that much. So, yeah. Halo, the series is my honorable mention for worst and most disappointing TV shows of 2022 so far. Now, this next one, even though it premiered in 2021, it had the majority of its episodes in 2022. From episode 2 on, it was in 2022. So you can probably say, like, this is one of the worst 2021, but let's just go 2022 in general. I think it's fine. It came out at the last week of January of last year, but I'm going to say it's 2022. It's for a show I actually was really liking for the most part, and it has some good moments, but I'm like, for the material and the world that you play in, there was no excuse for a lot of filler episodes and just kind of a sense of cheapness throughout. And that was the Book of Boba Fett, chat. Now, you guys know I'm a big Boba Fett fan. I love my Boba Fett. You know that. I've read all those comics and all those novels, and people say, like, Boba Fett didn't do anything in the original trilogy. True. Absolutely. I understand. But I did like, the how the character was portrayed in those various novels where they actually did give him depth, where he did have an arc. I like that. And I thought, well, but now, hey, when they bring back Tamara Morrison, he was established. They set him up, obviously, in The Mandalorian, season 1 and season 2. It's like, okay, now here is your opportunity, Lucasfilm, all right, to make Boba Fett a character. He's not just a guy in cool armor. He's not just a guy to sell action figures. Now you have the chance to make him an actual person, actual character. And where I feel like they occasionally did that in the beginning, which I feel like the series was at its strongest in the beginning, chat. I really enjoyed the flashback sequences that took place, like, from, in between the start of the show and what happened after the events of Return of the Jedi, when he fell into the Sarlacc pit and when he was adopted by the Tuskens and was ingratiated to Tusken society. I actually really liked those first 2 episodes quite a bit. I thought that was pretty good. I thought we got to learn more about Boba Fett, why he has this kind of new look on life, this new outlook, this new philosophy, and because, his whole thing is like he's been trying to find a family ever since his father died. I was like, you know what, this is pretty cool. And then I feel like everything after that was not nearly as good as what we had initially. This whole idea of him wanting to be a crime lord, you really don't get a sense of, okay, why do you want to be a crime lord? What is it? You're not even doing the necessary things in order to maintain your power. You just get these just ridiculously goofy segments that feel like they're straight out of Power Rangers. And I love Power Rangers, chap, but I'm like, still, you shouldn't be mixing Power Rangers with Star Wars or Spy Kids, which, doesn't help that this whole show was directed by Robert Rodriguez, or show ran by and produced by Robert Rodriguez. I mean, it's on. I could tell. You could tell in a lot of cases, chat. Or you literally, or in some cases, which is unbelievably, you don't even focus on the main character anymore. You completely drop him for like 2 episodes and go focus on some other people. It's like, what are you talking about? The show is called The Book of Boba Fett. And you spend 2 episodes not even focused. He doesn't even appear for one of those episodes of The Book of Boba Fett. Where it's like, oh, sorry, we're busy setting up Mandalorian season 3, and we want to have another episode where we're kind of, just focusing on more Mandalorian shit. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, there's one episode where Boba Fett's just not in it at all, which is the setting up Mando. It's basically Mandalorian season 2.5. And then there's a whole other episode where Boba Fett just goes, He nods his head, and that's it. And it's like, what are you doing? it's incredibly frustrating. To me, this felt like if you're not going to have it focus on Boba Fett, just have it be like a Star Wars anthology show. Just call this, it's just the Star Wars TV series, and we're going to all these different places in the universe, and they're all kind of connecting to each other, sure. But you literally said this is going to be about him, and in some cases, for entire episodes, it's just not. And that is really frustrating. You have episodes that feel like they're filler, and if you only have, how many episodes was this? 6 or 7 episodes? If you only have that many, then you have no excuse for fucking filler at this point. Okay? And yes, it has its cool moments. I really liked it when they brought in Cad Bane. I thought that was like, oh, that was really cool. And they got Corey Burton to voice him, who voiced him in the Star Wars Clone Wars series and Bad Batch. I was like, oh, nice. You know? I can't wait to see him again. And you kill him! And you barely, he dies. It's like, okay, I don't know why you did that. That was weird. 7 episodes, thank you. And yeah, we got to see Boba Fett ride a Rancor. And you got to see some other cool scenes. But even like how this series wraps up where it's like, wait, what? You have where Boba Fett, he's now crime lord. He's the nice crime lord of Mos Espa, of Tatooine. And it literally has him talking to Ming-Na Wen, who, famously, did the voice of Mulan, and she was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Very talented actress, of course. I like her as Fennec Shaw quite a bit. But you have it where, you know what? I don't think I'm cut out for this. Then what was the fucking point of this show? What was the goddamn point of this show? If you literally have the character going, you know what? I really want to do this. It's like, why did we do all this? All these people fucking died for nothing. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna give my criminal empire to these fucking teenagers from Spy Kids. That's what I'm gonna do. And it's just, okay. I don't know. I thought it started really, really strong, and it just kind of stumbled and floundered. There were I love that Mandalorian episode. Was great. I thought that was really fun, but my God. It was a waste of potential. You had every opportunity to really make Boba Fett look really cool and make him an actual character. And they did some of that. But it was not enough. It was not enough. And there's no goddamn excuse. It's very frustrating. And so I wouldn't say this is like, the worst of 20, probably not, but definitely one of the most disappointing ones of 2022, Chad. We got to see Grogu hug Mando. We did see that. We got to see them reunited, which we knew they would be reunited. That did happen. Orion, they stripped away what we loved about Boba Fett. I think that was about the thing, because maybe the air of mystery about the character is what worked for him so much. He was very much the man of no name. He was very much based on Clint Eastwood's character from the Dollars trilogy. I mean, that's what his influence was. If you read the books, you read the novels, if you read the short stories and the comics, he is Clint Eastwood in those. It's like, oh, this is cool. And he has his own sense of morality, but he'll work for the bad guys if he wants to. And and the other thing too is they were obviously softening him because, well, we can't have a Star Wars TV show where he's a bad guy because kids are going to watch this. It's like, why not? It would have been very interesting to have seen Boba Fett wrestle with his morality constantly. And where he went through this horrible, traumatic thing where he almost died, and he was raised by he was brought back by the Tuskens, but he still had his own sensibilities. He still was kind of a piece of shit. He was constantly dealing with that. I think if we honestly saw a struggle with him that, like, him doing, like, really cold-hearted, evil shit, but then he's like, oh, fuck, I don't know if I want this anymore. Like, that would have been more interesting. Oh, and Black Chrysanthemum. Oh, my God. That's the other thing, too. Like, there are so many scenes in this show where it just, again, looks cheap, or you have people that don't know how to film fight scenes at all. I don't know who the cinematographer was on this show, but Lord. Because there were some fight scenes that looked really cool, like the whole train sequence I thought was awesome. But then you have stuff like that wrestling match, that WWE wrestling match in Jabba's Palace of Black Chrysanthemum, or the slowest speeder chase you've ever seen with extras from Power Rangers. Like, what is going on? He just ran away. He just like, all right. I love that Boba Fett be like, you know what Boba Fett would have done? He would have killed him. Boba Fett would have been like, oh, you tried to kill me? Boom, he would have shot him. He's like, if anyone fucking tries to do that again, you'll end up like him. That's what should have happened. Obviously, Chrysanthemum should not have been used that way, but, fuck. It's like so much of this show felt like it was made by Saban. Yeah, you're right. And it is, so disappointing. So disappointing. It started strong, but my God. I don't know. And that last episode was fun. There was some fun shit. I like the Cad Bane things. I love all the Cad Bane stuff. You know me, chat, but it was just not what it needed to be. It could have been better. Could have been better. In all sorts of cases, chat. However, I don't think this, despite this being disappointing, I still don't think it's as disappointing as this next thing, this last show I wanted to bring up, chat, because I had higher expectations for it. And I still stand by this, but I feel like, to me, the most disappointing show of 2022 so far, chat, is Obi-Wan Kenobi. I felt like, okay, that was Boba Fett. He's a tertiary character. He didn't really have any set of arc. He wasn't really even a character in the original trilogy. He has like several lines, has maybe like less than 5 minutes of screen time, and he fell into a giant sand vagina. Okay. But with Kenobi, I thought, all right, this is when you're going to bring your A game. I just expected that, where you're going to now focus on Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi and Hayden Christensen's Darth Vader and the relationship and the time in between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. This is what you're going to bring. It's based on a script from a film that they were going to do. Obviously Solo was a financial failure, and they changed this to a series. But I was like, okay, but you're still going to bring it, right? And they don't. Simply, they don't. How this episode starts, I think, is quite good, where we see Obi-Wan on Tatooine, and he's a broken man. It takes place 10 years after, I think, the events of Revenge of the Sith. So that next 9 years on Tatooine is a rough chat sand. It's coarse, rough, and irritating. It gets fucking everywhere, and it ages you like 20 years. But I really like that first episode where we see that he's broken. He's watching after Luke and everything. And I thought it was a really good setup to what I thought was then going to be him confronting Anakin and them, like, getting down to the nitty-gritty details of their relationship, of what happened, why it failed. I thought that this series was going to be about Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader, and it's not. It's not about them. It, much in the same way as the book Boba Fett, it functions as just another way to expand and try to do more spin-off Star Wars shows, where you introduce characters who just frankly just didn't need to be there, and just to spin them off. I mean, once we get to episode 2, like, some of the stuff that they pull off, some of the shenanigans they pull off, like in episode 2, like, listen, the actress who plays Leia, I think she's quite good, but how they use her, I don't know how it got past the dailies when they have a literal 10-year-old little girl with whittle stubby legs being able to outrun these bumbling bounty hunters in the woods and be able to shoot that and go, yeah, that looks fine, that looks good. It's like, what are you talking about? It's like, no, everyone was talking about that. You can say everything, even the people who love this show, you have to admit, it's like, give me a goddamn break. all this unnecessary stuff, or the unnecessary mystery of the Reva character, of Reva, where it's supposed to set up her spin-off series, where her whole thing is she's mad, and we were like, why are you mad, Reva? Because I'm mad. It's like, okay, all right, see you next episode. And it's too bad, because Moses Ingram is a great actress. But the material that she's given, so much of the material that a lot of these actors are given, it's just bad. It feels half-assed. And the other thing about it too is it feels cheap. This is the climactic meeting yet again between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader. And like, you have so many scenes in this show that feel so inexpensive, that feel like a fan film, whether it be the choreography or the special effects. And it's like, this shouldn't be there, or the sets. It's like, I can see the halo of the green screen behind them. There's just no excuses for this. You're fucking Disney. You are Disney. And you can't make this look like the movies? There's no excuses. And then when we finally do get to the stuff between Anakin and Obi-Wan, we barely get any of it, really. We barely get any screen time where they're together. You get a really bad duel where they don't even talk to each other. They say a couple lines, maybe one back and forth, and that's it. And then when we really get to the meat of the stuff, which I've been wanting for so long, at the end of the episode, it feels like it's too little, too late. Where we get a really cool duel that's probably very well choreographed, but it's just horrifically shot and edited. That's what's so surprising about this. For whatever reason, I don't know. It was a design choice. I feel like by the editor and Deborah Chow, where we are going to make sure the audience has no fucking clue what's going on. Where one of the things that I do appreciate about all the Star Wars films, really, you say what you will about all those movies. You say what you will about George Lucas or J.J. Abrams, Irving Kershner, Richard Marquand, Rian Johnson. They at least fucking kept that camera still. It was steady, and I knew what was going on. I was like, okay, I see what's happening here. We can talk about the choreography of some of that stuff, sure. But I knew what was happening. And this, I have no idea. Even though probably what is happening is probably really good choreography. It's just how it was shot and how it was edited. Terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. And then again, you have some other actors who I feel like underused who are doing a great job. Like, I love that they brought back Joel Edgerton as Uncle Owen. He was one of the highlights for me. He's only in the first and the last episode. I was like, fuck. It made me realize, like, wow, this show really should have just been about Obi-Wan Kenobi, Owen, and Darth Vader, and Hayden Christensen. That would have been really, really cool. Because I feel like anytime they were on screen, the show was typically at its best. Unless they had Obi-Wan doing something goofy like hiding a little girl under his trench coat. Unless he was just doing something like that. But yeah, it is. Once it's all said and done, it's like this is it. This is all it was. And then there's this plot. There's huge plot holes. The characters, they change their entire belief systems. Like, all right, sure. You have this whole character, the Reva character, which, I don't want to hate on. I'm not hating on Moses Ingram. I'm hating on the writing for her character. We have this whole person who wants to seek vengeance, who doesn't even make any fucking. How does she know that Anakin is Darth Vader? How does she know that? There's never a scene where she finds that out. Because, if you find out in the show, she was stabbed by Anakin, but she's like, that's Anakin Skywalker. There's not a line of dialogue. There's not a single line of dialogue in the series where they call him Lord Vader as he's Anakin. It's like none of that's there. None of that's there. But she somehow just knows that Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader. Okay. And Vader allows that. Okay. And then she sets up, she fails to kill Vader, of course. But she finds out that Vader has a child on Tatooine and that it is Luke, and she goes there. And she just can't, despite her murdering countless innocent people, hunting down, torturing, and murdering Jedi, she just can't kill that little white boy, chat. She just sees a little bit of that white boy in herself. As we all know, chat, we have a little white boy in all of us. Little white boy in all of it. Loaded Gun, you got a little white boy in you. M. Xavier, you got a little white boy in you. Nia Brown, you got a little white boy in you. And so do you, Caitlin McGee. And I got one too. We all got a little white boy in all of us, chat. And she was like, I ain't going to do it. I ain't going to kill him. I'm like, okay. All right, sure. And it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, what's the point? Now, apparently there's been a Variety article that's come out recently where the original script writer, he's talked about his script, and where the Reva character, there was not supposed to be any other Inquisitor. Oh, that's the other thing too. Anyone in Star Wars can survive a stab with a lightsaber to the gut. As long as you're not Qui-Gon Jinn. If you're fucking Qui-Gon Jinn, you're a pussy. You it's over. But you're not Qui-Gon Jinn. You can easily, you're good. You're good. You'll be able to walk around, be able to fight. No problem. No problem at all. No problemo. But the writer from the original Obi-Wan Kenobi movie, he came out and he talked about how, well, I wouldn't have had any of the other Inquisitors. Reva! It would have been Reva and Darth Vader. And Reva would have been Darth Vader's agent doing all this stuff. But her whole thing was her motivation as to what she was doing was not out of revenge wanting to kill Vader. Her motivation was she always thought that the Jedi abandoned her in Order 66, and she always hated Anakin Skywalker. She thought it was the Jedi that betrayed the Republic, right? And that's why she wants to be an Inquisitor. That's why she's working at the Empire. Why she wants to be a Vader, not knowing that Vader and Anakin are one and the same. And then at one point, because, she knows, because Vader tells her, I want to find Obi-Wan Kenobi. Help me. And he's like, okay. And when she confronts Obi-Wan, this is what it would have been. Obi-Wan would have said, the guy you've been working with the whole time, who's been saying all these lies, Palpatine would have had a larger role in manipulating Reva as well. He would have then converted. It's like, no, you don't understand. The Jedi didn't betray you. He did. Vader is Anakin. She's like, what are you talking? And that's would have been the big whole revelation with her. And it's like, that makes so much fucking sense. It makes so much more sense that way instead of like, she just knew. How? I don't know. What are you talking about? So there was that. There was that. And they go into more details too about it as well. Very fascinating, and it should have been a movie. That's the other thing too. So much of this show is so fucking cheap looking, and it's so frustrating watching entire elements of a show that was made with Disney money look like a fan film. There's no excuse. And not all of it's bad. I think Ewan McGregor does a great job for the most of the time. I feel like Joel Edgerton is great, and I like the actress they brought her back to play Beru. I thought she did a good job too. I feel like some of the stuff with Leia worked. Other times it wasn't always working, but I think the actress for the most part did a good job. And Hayden Christensen, he was underused. I wish they had more flashback. They only have one flashback sequence between Obi-Wan and Anakin, and again, that was another fucking lost opportunity. I keep saying this. One of my biggest issues, a lot of the biggest issues people have with the prequels is that we never get a sense of the loving relationship between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin. And that's because, obviously of George Lucas's direction and his writing, and how he chose to use both Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen. It was a goddamn shame. We had to look to ancillary materials like Star Wars: The Clone Wars and the books and the novels to see, they did have a loving relationship, whether it was brotherly or father to son. It was like, now that makes sense. And I thought, this is your opportunity now to do that in live action, and they squander it. And it's like, why? It should have been all about them. It should have been that should have been the crux of this show, is Anakin and Obi-Wan, Darth Vader and Obi-Wan. And it's not enough of it. There's some of that there, and that shit is some of the best content in this show, but there should have been more. But they were too busy wanting to set up other plot lines that literally go nowhere or make no goddamn sense, or spin-off shows. And it's like, that is a shame. That's a shame. It's really frustrating. So you can read. I highly recommend reading that Variety article, chat. But yeah, this as of right now for me, this is I get it. Saying worst is, hyperbolic. There are definitely worse things than Obi-Wan Kenobi. But in terms of disappointing, this is definitely the most disappointing TV show that I have seen all the way through this year in 2022 so far. That's just kind of how I feel, chat. Those are my picks. What about you guys? What are your most disappointing or worst shows of 2022 so far? I imagine people have seen more worse TV than I have. Thankfully, I've seen a lot of good TV. Very happy about that. Very privileged to have had that happen to me. But what about you? Very curious.